The morning air was thick with heat as Naomi Raines knelt by the stone steps of an old southern church. Her hands sunk into the dirt. Her green jumpsuit was faded, her locket dull with age, but there was a kind of quiet pride in the way she pulled weeds and planted fresh marigolds. People passed her without a second glance. Just the old black woman from the edge of town, minding her own business like she always did. She smiled at a little girl walking past. The girl waved back before running to catch up with her mum. Naomi kept working. She didn't need thanks. She didn't need company. She just needed silence and routine. It had kept her alive all these years. But across the street, a woman behind a window watched her every move, pale-skinned, bitter-eyed, and used to getting what she wanted with a phone call. Her lips barely moved as she spoke into the receiver. Yes, there's a woman outside the church. Looks suspicious, elderly, but she's watching the kids. I don't feel safe. 15 minutes later, 3 police cruisers pulled into the lot. No sirens, just flashing lights. The quiet, casual kind of intimidation, reserved for people like Naomi. Chief Mervyn Doyle stepped out first, red-faced, barrel-chested, and already angry for no reason. 2 officers followed, hands on belts, eyes locked on Naomi like she was prey. She stood up slowly, dusting her knees with dignity. She didn't flinch, didn't back away. She simply looked at the officers and waited for their nonsense. "Ma'am," Doyle barked, "step away from the steps. Hands where I can see 'em." Naomi raised her hands, calm and steady. "Is there a problem, sir? We got a call about a suspicious person loitering near children. You match the description. I've been tending to this garden every morning for the past 3 months. The Reverend knows, you can ask him." Doyle ignored her words. "Let me see some ID." Naomi nodded toward her tote bag on the bench. Inside the front pocket, the younger officer stepped forward to grab it, but Doyle waved him off and marched over himself. When Naomi leaned forward to open it, Doyle grabbed her wrist roughly and yanked her upright. "I said hands where I can see, am I not resisting?" she said quietly. "And you're not supposed to touch people without cause. You don't get to tell me the law, lady. Turn around." Naomi didn't move. Her eyes locked onto his with a calm that made Doyle even angrier. "Now," he shouted, grabbing both her arms and spinning her around. The cuffs clamped over her wrists with a loud click. Naomi didn't resist. She didn't speak. A few people nearby had started recording on their phones, their faces filled with concern. One teenager whispered, "What is she even being arrested for? She's just an old lady. She didn't do anything." But Doyle was deaf to it. He shoved Naomi forward, dragging her across the sidewalk like she was a criminal. Her knees scraped the pavement when she stumbled. Still, she didn't cry out. In the police car, Naomi sat in silence as the officers made crude remarks about troublemakers and how things used to be handled. She just stared out the window at the trees. She had seen worse. Much worse. Back at the station, they brought her in through the side entrance. Booking was routine. Name, age, address. "Put your hand on the scanner," the officer muttered. Naomi placed her right hand on the glass. A soft beep. Then another. Then a loud buzz. The screen turned red. Access denied. Federal clearance required. Level 7 classified. Falitha, officer stared, confused. That's not normal." He ran it again. Same result. "Chief," he called out. "We got something weird here." Doyle was halfway through a coffee and clearly annoyed. "What now?" "Her fingerprints aren't coming up. It's flagging for high security clearance. Some kind of federal lock." Doyle rolled his eyes. "Probably a mistake." "Run it again." 3 times. "Sir, same thing. It says, Omega level asset. Whatever that means." Doyle frowned. Omega? What? By now, 2 more officers had gathered. They stared at Naomi like she had suddenly grown horns. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, still handcuffed, completely calm. One young female officer, Riley, looked up from her terminal. "This is serious. I think she's someone we weren't supposed to find." "She's a grandma planting flowers," Doyle snapped. "Not some secret agent." Then why is she triggering Pentagon-level red alerts? Riley whispered. Meanwhile, Naomi sat in the holding cell, hands folded, ankles crossed. There were no windows, just the hum of a buzzing light overhead. But she wasn't worried. She was counting, watching, listening. Her ears caught the shift in footsteps outside. She recognized the pattern. Heavy, even military-grade boots. Not local cops. 2 hours passed before it happened. 2 black SUVs with tinted windows pulled into the station lot. No sirens, no noise, just quiet power. 4 agents stepped out. Suits crisp, movements efficient. They didn't knock when they entered. They just walked in and handed Doyle a folder. He opened it. Inside were 4 stamped pages and a photo. His eyes widened. What is this? You've detained a federally protected individual under shadow clearance, one agent said coldly. You weren't supposed to find her, you weren't supposed to touch her, and you definitely weren't supposed to scan her. Doyle was suddenly sweating. Look, nobody told us anything, the agent cut him off. You don't ask questions when someone's file is deeper than yours. She didn't even resist. She didn't need to, the agent replied. You should be thankful. She didn't. The officers watched in silence as Naomi was quietly released from her cuffs. Her wrists bore the bruises, but her face was unreadable. She stood up, straightened her shirt, and calmly followed the agents out. At the door, she paused and looked back. Doyle stood frozen, still clutching the file. Naomi's voice was soft, but sharp. You arrested the wrong woman. She stepped into the SUV. The door closed. The engine started. No one dared move until the convoy disappeared down the road. Back inside the station, the silence was suffocating. Everyone was still staring at the scanner screen, still red, still flashing a warning no one could erase, and in the air, a single question hung heavy. Who was Naomi Raines? The SUV rolled silently through the back roads, the windows tinted black. The outside world, nothing but shadows and fading light. Naomi sat still in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable. The agent in the front didn't speak, neither did the one beside her. The silence was thick, almost reverent. They didn't know what to say to her. No one ever did. After nearly 30 minutes, the convoy pulled into a restricted airfield on the outskirts of the state. There were no markings, no signs, just a concrete path and a rusted hangar that hadn't been used in decades or so. It appeared. As soon as the vehicle stopped, a panel in the ground slid open, revealing a sleek underground ramp leading into darkness. They drove in. The tunnel lit up as they passed, each overhead light flickering to life, revealing a facility that was still very much alive. The SUV stopped. The rear door opened. Agent Simone Reyes stood waiting. She didn't move as Naomi stepped out. Her posture was erect, her expression tight, but her eyes gave her away. There was history there. Something unspoken. Naomi met her gaze. Still breathing, barely. You don't look like you've aged. I've been busy forgetting. Simone gave a faint smile, then turned. Naomi followed her down a long hall lined with sealed doors and security panels. Armed guards watched them from behind tinted glass. They reached a secured briefing room. Inside, the lights were low. On the table were several classified files, some photographs, and a single name typed in red ink, Omega. Echo. Naomi looked at it without flinching. Simone closed the door behind them. You knew this day would come, I hoped. It wouldn't. You made too many enemies to stay buried. Then they should have buried me deeper. Simone took a breath. She slid one photo toward Naomi. It showed a man in a military uniform, younger than both of them, smiling with hollow eyes. On the back of the photo was a name: Nikolai Vasov. He's not just alive, Naomi, he's recruiting again. Naomi stared at the photo for several seconds. Her jaw tightened. That monster should have died in Prague. He didn't, and now he's building something off-grid. He's using ghost IDs, abandoned missions, and worse, he's naming names. Yours was the first. Naomi looked up. What does he want? You, or your silence? He won't get either. Simone nodded once, then tapped on the desk. A screen lit up, showing satellite footage, grainy but unmistakable. A group of men training in the forest. Among them was someone with a familiar stance. Someone who moved like Naomi used to. Silent, brutal, controlled. "That's not him," Naomi said. "No, that's his daughter. He's training her the way he trained you." Naomi narrowed her eyes. "Then she's already dangerous. We need your help." You don't need my help. You need someone to blame when this explodes. Simone didn't argue. She just stood quietly, waiting. Meanwhile, back in Milton County, the world was catching fire. Kamari stood in her bedroom, pacing. Her phone kept buzzing notifications, shares, messages, all about the video of Naomi's arrest. Overnight, it had gone viral. Over 2.7 million views, people demanding answers, but no one had them. Kamari opened Naomi's old chest at the foot of the bed. Inside was a journal wrapped in cloth, locked with a metal clasp. She ran her fingers over the leather cover. Her grandmother had told her never to open it unless she disappeared. Now felt like that time. She used a tiny brass key hidden in the baseboard and opened the journal. Inside were pages of strange symbols, lines, maps, and dates. But on the first page was a name she recognized, Mervyn Doyle, the police chief, and beside his name, a word. Written in red ink. Compromised.kamar. I grabbed her phone and snapped a picture. She sent it to the only person she thought could help it unlock. Aiden had spent all night researching Naomi. Or trying to. Every official record ended in 1987. Before that, a few blurry mentions. But no clear biography, no birth certificate, no military record. It was as if she had been erased on purpose. Until Kamari's photo came through. When he saw Doyle's name and the word compromised, everything clicked. He grabbed his bag, his camera, and headed to Kamari's house. She met him on the porch, eyes wide, heart racing. She handed him the journal. "There's more." He opened it carefully. Inside were surveillance notes, locations, call signs, even code phrases. Naomi had kept track of something for decades. Maybe even someone. One note stood out. "If Division 9 activates, it means they're..." Cleaning the board, Aiden looked up. "Who's Division 9? Kamari shook her head. "I don't know. But Naomi always said they weren't real." "Then why did she write about them like they were?" Aiden's breath caught. "We need to find her." "You won't find her unless she wants to be found. Then we need to make her want to be found." Back at the compound, Naomi sat alone in a training room, staring at the wall, not thinking, just remembering. The first kill, the broken loyalty, the mission they never finished, the betrayal they never saw coming. A door opened behind her. Simone entered, holding a file. "They've started pulling your old team. One's dead, one disappeared in South America, and the last." Naomi stood. "Don't tell me, he's working for Nikolai now." Naomi's hands clenched, her voice was a whisper. "Then I'll finish this myself." Simone looked at her carefully. "You're not who you used to be." Naomi smiled coldly. "No, I'm worse." She walked past her, heading for the lockers. Her old bag was there, sealed. Inside, her combat boots, her gloves, her locket. She put them on one by one, and as she pulled her hood over her head, she said the one thing Simone didn't want to hear. "Tell them to run, because I'm not hiding anymore." The journal lay open across Aiden's desk, its pages filled with codes, dates, coordinates, and names most people would never recognize. But Aiden wasn't most people anymore. Since Naomi vanished, he had stopped thinking like a journalist. Now, he was decoding a war story hidden in plain sight. Kamari sat across from him, chewing the edge of her sleeve as her eyes scanned the page. She paused at one symbol, an X through a circle, marked in red ink. "I saw this once. In Naomi's bedroom, carved into the wooden headboard." Aiden stared at her. "That's not just a marking. That's a dead drop symbol. It means whatever she couldn't write down is hidden nearby." They looked at each other. Kamari stood up quickly, already heading toward Naomi's house. 2 hours later, They stood in her dim bedroom. Everything was exactly how she'd left it, and quiet, untouched. Kamari walked over to the bed and ran her fingers along the headboard. There, etched into the wood, was the same X inside a circle. She reached beneath the frame, fingers feeling blindly until they touched something hard and metal. She pulled out a rusted tin box. Inside it were three things: a USB stick, a photo of Naomi in uniform beside three other people, and a small folded map. Aiden grabbed the USB and plugged it into his laptop. It opened instantly, no password. The screen filled with documents, stamped eyes only. The first one was a mission file. Dated June 2002. Target, Nikolai Vasov. Mission, terminate status, incomplete reason, extraction failure. Operative reins went dark. Aiden clicked on the next full images of Naomi. Younger, dressed in tactical black, leading a team through snow-covered ruins. Her eyes in the photos were the same as now, calm, focused, ready to end anything. One image showed a young man tied to a chair. His face was bruised, but he was smirking. Nikolai. There was a log entry. We had him. We were 1 second from ending everything. And then they pulled the plug. I was betrayed by my own, left behind. And he walked free. Aiden looked at Kamari. She never told anyone. She never wanted anyone to know. In the next room, Naomi's old radio crackled softly, static humming through the quiet. And then it shifted. A voice whispered through the fuzz. Echo. Respond. Kamari froze. Aiden walked slowly to the table. Staring at the frequency, it's coming from inside the town. Naomi's still here, across the city. Inside an abandoned train station beneath the surface, Naomi sat alone, hands stained with grease, assembling a small drone from scraps. Her breath was steady, her hands quick. Even now, even at her age, she moved like a soldier. A soft beep came from the radio. Beside her, the boy found it. She sighed and smiled faintly. Then he's smarter than most of my team was. Footsteps echoed behind her. Simone entered, this time without a coat, her hair tied back. A file in her hands. They traced the broadcast. Naomi didn't look up. Good. I wanted them to. They know you're in the city, then they'll come, and what happens when they do? Naomi snapped the drone shut and looked at Simone. Then I do what? I've always done. Survive. Simone placed the file on the table. You should see this. Naomi flipped it open. Inside were photos, current ones. Chief Doyle shaking hands with men in expensive suits. One of them was circled. That's Vasav's proxy. He's already inside the system. Naomi's voice hardened. That man used to interrogate prisoners with acid. Now he's smiling for cameras. He's organizing a private auction next week. Weapons, tech, identities, and people. Naomi looked up. Simone hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Naomi stood up. Then we're out of time. That night, Aiden and Kamari sat in the basement of an old library, going through the USB files. Every document exposed something uglier than the last CIA handlers gone rogue. Operations buried under accidental drone strikes, and names of those who were silenced after trying to speak up. And at the center of it all, one codename appeared. Again and again, Echo. That's what they called her. She was the mind behind it all. Not just a soldier, a strategist, a living weapon. Kamari stared at her phone. The video of Naomi's arrest had crossed 4 million views. Protests had started across the city. People were asking, chanting, demanding. Where is she? Why was she taken? Who is Naomi Raines? Aiden whispered. She's about to answer, and she's going to change everything in the dark of the night. Naomi climbed the back of a water tower that overlooked the city. Her eyes scanned the rooftops, every alley, every point of entry. Her muscles ached, but her mind was sharper than ever. She pressed the earpiece Simone gave her. Move the girl to safety. What about the boy? He's useful, but keep him in the dark. Not yet, not until I'm ready. Below her, 2 men in suits exited a black van. One of them glanced upward. Sensing something. Naomi didn't flinch. She had a clear shot, but she didn't take it. Not yet. Instead, she whispered into the mic, "Let them get comfortable, because when I strike, the city breathed quietly beneath the storm clouds, unaware of the war gathering above its rooftops." Naomi watched it all from the edge of the water tower, her hands resting on the steel rail. She wasn't waiting, she was calculating. Every movement, every shift in the alley below, every face that looked up too quickly. The city had changed, but the enemy hadn't. They still moved with arrogance, still believed she was just an old woman in hiding. Naomi pressed her earpiece. "They're gathering at the auction. 37 names confirmed. Doyle will be there." Simone's voice came through faintly. "And Varsov's proxy, he's leading it." Naomi's jaw tightened. "Then they're all coming to one place. Let's make it count." Inside the underground auction chamber, gold lights spilled across polished floors and walls lined with paintings and weapons. Powerful men and women sat in rows, whispering into phones, bidding silently on things they could never admit to owning. Names, locations, weapons, children, everything had a price. Chief Doyle stood near the back, dressed in a black suit too tight for his ego. He wasn't there to bid. He was there to be rewarded. A silver-haired man approached him with a champagne glass. "We appreciate your silence." Doyle smirked. "I know when to keep my mouth shut." Outside, a white van rolled to a stop in the alley. The door opened, and Naomi stepped out in a grey hooded coat. She moved without sound, stepping over puddles and shadows like they belonged to her. In her hand was a tiny black device, pulsing faintly with light. Simone's voice came through her earpiece again. "We've jammed. There comes. You have 6 minutes. That's all I need." Naomi moved through the back entrance, bypassing 2 guards. With swift, silent precision, one fell before he could draw his weapon. The other never saw her hand strike his throat. She kept moving. Inside the chamber, a low vibration passed under the floor. One of the lights flickered. No one noticed, until the screens lining the walls all went black. Then a face appeared. Naomi's. There was no message, no speech, just her stare. Cold. Still known. The room erupted in noise. Doyle stood frozen. "It can't be her, she's dead." She was. Naomi moved quickly now, sliding past steel doors and across catwalks. Above the chamber, she placed the device at the beam's center. And then she dropped. She landed silently on the stage. In front of them all, the guards raised their weapons. Too late, Naomi moved like wind through glass. 3 men were down before the others realized she hadn't come alone. From the back of the room, black-suited agents entered, led by Simone. Weapons drawn. Chaos unfolded. People screamed, ran, pushed past each other. Naomi moved straight toward Doyle. He backed away, knocking over a chair, pulling a small pistol from inside his coat. "You should have stayed buried." Naomi didn't answer. She reached him in 2 steps. The gun went off. She didn't blink. The bullet missed as her hand gripped his wrist and twisted until the gun fell. He screamed. She brought him to his knees. "I gave you a chance. I didn't know who you were, but you knew what you were doing." She released him and let him crawl. Simone moved in and cuffed him. Naomi turned toward the silver-haired man at the podium. He tried to run. She caught him at the exit. He looked at her like she was a ghost. "You don't understand," he gasped. "We were trying to survive." "No, you were hiding behind money." She stepped aside and let the agents take him. An hour later, the auction was shut down. Dozens arrested, files seized. Naomi walked out as calmly as she had walked in. But it wasn't over. Back at the station, Kamari waited. Naomi returned just before dawn. Kamari ran to her and hugged her tightly. "You're really back, Naomi." Held her close. "I never left. I was just waiting." "For what?" "For the world to wake up." Aiden sat nearby, stunned. "They're calling you a hero." "I'm not." "Then what are you?" A reminder. Later, in the quiet of her room, Naomi took off her coat and sat by the window. Outside, the city had begun to stir again. Cars, footsteps, life. She watched it all. But her eyes weren't tired. They were sharper now than ever. Her war was never about bullets or blood, it was about truth. And finally, the world was listening. Behind her, the old radio crackled again. One last message, echo. Stand by. Naomi closed her eyes. No. I'm done standing by, let them come.